Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Friday Night Live. We have a piece of the Deanna Tubb-Sedillo background papers here, and I've pre-stamped it with a couple impressions of the Lakeside Cove large, just directly onto that surface, okay? And then what I've done is I've stamped out this. I'm looking for my piece of paper that I stamped that out of. I might have already tossed it, but I stamped this Lakeside Cove again right here, along with this tall peak image. All right. Now I've extended that out like that just because the edge of this piece of cardstock directly over the top of this background paper by Deanna was a little bit too harsh. You can see like a really definitive line, which is okay on the mountain because the mountain has a definitive line. But right around here in the trees, I could integrate it, but it's just easier to have that additional row of, or little portion of the trees stamped directly onto the paper. And again, this is so that I can extend her really cool paper out into a larger scene. So I've adhered this cutout right here, again on white cardstock, the same as the material down here, right on top of this background paper, and I've taken that whole thing and I've adhered it to the top of this larger piece right here, and this is 5.5 by 10 inches. Okay, so the concept of this card is going to be this light kind of shining on this water. This is going to be an entire body of water right here. And the thing that I want to go for is I wanted to use some of my orca images right here. This is a little pod of them swimming up here on the surface. But then I would have some underwater, this underwater scenario right here where we'd have these additional light beams shining down here, along with these underwater orcas, like, somewhere along this. I'd probably have this over here like this to create this little bit of a dynamic. So we get this two beam type of scenario here with some of those crepuscular underwater beams in here. I'm kind of formulating it on the fly here, so I don't know exactly what I'm doing. Well, that's always the case, but in some scenes it's especially so. All right. Hello, Bonnie and Linda. How are you? All right, so let's see. Let's get some... just let me take a look at these images right here. Let's go like this. These ones are going to be the key here in terms of getting the angle or something that I want. So here's the idea right here. These beams are going to be coming down this way. So, I mean, you can do these whales underwater at any angle that you want, but maybe this way is going to create this type of angle right here. And then that would be, it would have a nice directional contrast against the beams. I mean, you could have it go with the beam too, and that would be, another type of scenario. That would be fine as well. But anyway, let's see. I'm going to put some underwater rocks down here. I always like using the boulders with lichen seemingly in a lot of my underwater scenarios, as well as above, but I think they just match really well here. All right, so let's see how this goes here. I think I'm going to be using some stays on right here. I don't know why. Maybe it'll just dry faster, I don't know. But that's what I stamped out these in up top here. Okay, let's see. Go like that. We'll just go with the full impression. I considered kind of stamping that off a little bit to make it a little bit lighter for an underwater kind of murkier look. But I think because this imagery is stamped out in black up top here, we want to have that same kind of heavier looking darkness down below just to balance it off. All right, let's go with this one here. So that's one right here, and let's do another one back here. Maybe I'll do the second one lighter, so we'll get a little bit of the best of both worlds. We'll have it, a little bit of kind of visual depth using value, as well as the darkness of this one here. Okay, let's see. I haven't done this too much with stays on because it just dries so fast, so sometimes I'm not sure how much time I have, to get that stamped out right there. So see, darker, lighter like that. All right. We'll go like this. I don't want to stamp too much down here because I have those other whales that I'm going to be stamping up on the surface like that. Hello, Cecile. Happy Friday. I don't know about all of you. I say this all the time in terms of time. It's like I write my kind of year-ending newsletter, and it seems like I'm always saying, oh my God, that year went by fast, but these weeks are going by fast too. All right, let's put this right down here or so. Okay. This stamp right here is called Giant Sea Kelp. Not really. But I use it for my kelp all the time. Because it has that kind of wavy kind of in the current type of S-curve look to it. Twisting leaves. Let's go with another one. Isn't that a cool background paper by Deanna? I think it was one of those that it's either didn't get accepted in terms of her submissions of new background papers, or just, it's just the larger size. So this one's, it's a bit larger because she just printed it off for me to try out. If you want that kind of special size background paper by her, you have to give her the secret password, though. It's like a background paper, like speakeasy. So when you instant message her, just say, hey, Deanna, and she'll give you this thing, and then you reply with Deanna is cool, and you're in. All right. So we have our foreground like that. All right, foreground, underwater foreground. They go faster the older, yeah. My wife and I were talking about this whole thing. It's our son just finished his first year of college, and we're saying, man, even high school went by so fast. It's like that college year went by even faster. All right, let's go with these whales underwater like that. Okay. I'm going to go really low like that because I need extra space here. I really wanted to go for an extra, my original thought I wasn't going to use one of these background papers here, but this is 10 inches like this. So if I want to be able to mat this off, I had to cut it off, I don't have larger, scrapbooking paper where it goes to 12 by 12. So everything I do, it's mostly at most it's going to be about 10 inches, so I can, you know, throw in a like a double mat around this piece right here. But yeah, it'd be cool to go a little bit larger than this. Okay. I'm being careful not to stamp my whale head, like right. No, I guess that's his tail. I don't want to get it into the that kelp right there. I might get the lower one, but the top one I didn't want to have mixed in with that. All right. Yeah, right there. So I wanted to have it separate. See, when you have it touching like that, it kind of merges into that a little bit. And like I said, I didn't want to have it going into that too much, because this is going to get darker in here, and I want the silhouette to be pretty distinct. Hello, Cynthia. How are you? Oh, have a good dinner. Have something really good for all of us. Get order 2 desserts. All right, let's see here. That is that. Should I position? I guess I should position my whales up top. I wasn't quite sure how to address this right here. I have this one image called Shimmering, and it has these kind of this negative space. It's not really negative space, but kind of, where it defines like this lighting right here. Because one of the things I want to do is I really want to have those light beams coming down here in this scenario right here. I've done it before in a previous video. It was with one of Deanna's papers, in fact. But this one I want to have more distinct because it's much darker up here. So I'm trying to decide. This is where I wasn't quite sure on maybe the sequencing of this. You know, what to stamp first, or to stamp it at all. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can do this. Kind of surface, underwater scenario like that, above and below water type of thing. So I was trying to decide on which way I wanted to do that. But like I said, it's not really a right or wrong way to do it. It's just, you know, it's just like which way it's going to be the most effective towards serving the scene. And I wasn't quite sure what that was. But I don't know. Whatever way I'll do it, I'll know. After that, I guess. If I learn from either a success or failure or somewhere in between. All right, here we go, right here. Sorry for my head. I just needed to make sure those dorsal fins didn't go up onto this piece of paper. By the way, one of the things is it probably would have been better if I had this piece of paper right here separate, and then tone this lower portion in, and then glued this top portion to the paper. But since this is a live stream, I didn't want to, you know, leave the live stream. I mean, I've done it before. It doesn't take too long to do, but, you know, I've already glued it on here like that. Yeah, I don't know, just to... so I don't have to get up and leave. That's why some of my latest cards, recent ones, where I'm doing a lot of like trimming out, I don't have that in the live stream. It'd be just me like sitting around cutting, you know, vinyl with a scissor, which wouldn't be right. All right. So we have this right here. Let me see if I have that shimmering stamp right next to me. I've put a lot of stamps away recently, kind of, and gotten a little bit more organized, but I don't have it, but I do have the water pattern small. Let's just use that one. But this, anyways, this is our foundation right here. In terms of imagery, stamped in black, I don't think I want to put anything else in here because we're going to have those light beams coming through here. I don't want to put anything else here in the background. Okay, so let's say the surface of the water will go roughly like right here. And this will represent the lower portion, a la... Who are those artists that always did that above water, below water? Lassen and Weiland or something like that? All right. Memento Sweet Plum. Let me see if I have a couple different violet tones right here in my Marvies, or in my pads. Some of my pads are... Yeah, that one's really sunk in right there, but let's see if I can get an impression out of it. It doesn't have to be like... My impressions don't have to be really clean here. I just need a little bit of the texturing when it comes to this stamp right here. And let's see. Let's go with pinks, and blue's not going to match it too much, but blue is a component of that violet right there. So see these tones right here? You know, to roughly get myself started on achieving similar tones as that. We don't have to match it completely, but we want it to harmonize as much as possible. I don't know why, too. I don't have very much of a, like, violet toned colored pencils. It's just like going back to kindergarten, you know, my crayons. I was always at the end of the I don't know, at some point in time during the school year, my purple crayons were always you know, non-existent or used down to the like a little stub. All right, so something like this. So I'm putting together kind of my coloring scenario here, and we can add in some like alcohol markers as well, and try to get you know, a surface that's going to be reflective of and harmonize with this top version. Again, this is where I was mentioning, if I didn't have this kind of glued down here already, I wouldn't be having to contend with this, you know, edge right here that's raised. So I'd be able to get a cleaner application in this meeting spot right here. I wasn't sure if I was going to be adding some color down, you know, where I can't get right into that butted up, well, it's not butted up, but it's overlapping right there. I didn't know if I would get this edge right here. So hopefully not. And if I do, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with more white pigment ink. This is what I'm going to do anyways. The white pigment ink is going to come in from around here and right down in here, okay? So it will hopefully obscure this edge from this piece of paper right here, okay? Because that was one of the things I was thinking I might run into here in terms of a potential, you know, very minor problem, but one that I might have to contend with nonetheless. All right. All right, so water pattern small. Right. kind of darker on the perimeter. And lighter, not in the center, but, you know, right in this area right in here, okay? So I'm using it to create texture, but it's also kind of establishing my shading lighting scenario as well at the same time. A lot of times I'm using this on its edge too, just like this. I'm using like this portion of it by just angling it around like that. Okay, so you can use it in its entirety for a larger area, but then, you know, to get these little textures down, you can do that as well. Okay, let's go like that. This is a Sweet Plum Memento. About like that. And see, we have our lighting right on our pod, orca pod. Someone asked me if what stamp the sharks were. So if you see sharks in those dorsal fins like that, then they're sharks. But someone asked me that recently. I thought, I don't think they're really referring to. I don't think they're asking about the shark fins that are in the one of the Halloween sets from last year. But I thought it was cool that they liked one of my cards, even though they thought these were like sharks right here. All right, a little bit of that blue in there for kind of variation, hue variation like that. That's a salvia blue. Rosemary. Let's forget about the rosemary. This one's like completely collapsed. I just use that to dab a little bit of tone onto my color applicator. All right. Something like a deep lilac, so any type of violet that you might have. At this point in time, I don't know. That might even be enough right there. I probably don't need any more imagery, or texturing, but let's see how this goes. I think I need to come up into this little spot right up in here, that little water area. Talk like that. I've learned to use this and other texture stamps like the Tiny Rock Small more, whatever, effectively in the last, I don't know, maybe a couple years now. I didn't used to kind of like tap it so much like that. It was a little bit more airy, but I felt that doing this, it already kind of creates that shadow area that I'm going to be doing with color applications anyway. And it just gives me so much more of a head start. All right, so that is that. That looks terrible up there, by the way, but we're going to be bringing in some additional tones in here. And we'll start right now, but this is where, kind of see that edge right in there, where that, this paper ends and this one begins. But we'll try to integrate that in there. I can get in there a little bit more with some colored pencils, and then we'll come into it with some additional white pigment ink as well. So it's going to be getting a lot darker. We're going to be going to this dark in some areas here. Hello, Tracy. All right. This is a really cool background paper by Deanna. I was going to go with, this is with the other one that I thought about. That'd be really dramatic, wouldn't it? But the thing is, I needed that, this kind of solved a little bit, because I wanted light to be coming down into the water. And I thought this thing right here, this cool kind of nebula type of effect, I mean, that could be shining like light down in here. But I thought this one would be easier to integrate this paper with this lighting on the surface and then lighting below scenario. So I went with this one. All right, let's see here. Okay, so we're going back with the sweet plum. See where I'm getting that kind of edge showing right there because of this raised area. Apparently I don't use this sweet plum too often because it is super juicy. And it's pretty old too, I think. All right, that's a bit dark right there. And this is like, I don't know, that's like a 40% kind of gray value. Or whatever, shadow value. So I'll come into it. I'm going to add kind of a lighter foundation coat. Look at that right there. That's where my finger went. Memento inks, by the way. Well, actually, Memento, almost all inks besides Marvy, are really thick in value, so they're easy to spread around. And this is like a piece of, this isn't glossy cardstock either, it's semi-gloss. So it allows me to really kind of spread it around. I even do it with black, just straight black, going into some cards and doing those kind of monochromatic pieces, just using all grayscale. All right, now here's the thing I'm thinking about. I was thinking about not going too much darker, but the thing is I want to have those light beams kind of showing through here. So I need to make it dark enough so that you can show the beams right on top of there. So, oh, you're working on a scene, Candy. That's cool. What are you working on, Candy? We could stamp together virtually. It's like a stamping retreat. Not in terms of like a class setting or something like that, but in those scenic stamping retreats that I used to go to, everyone's just kind of working on their own pieces, and then you can get up and kind of walk around and see what else everyone else is doing whenever you take a break. All right, let's go like that. I'm putting a little bit of that tone on the that open section of the orcas like that. But okay, so right now what we're doing right here, you know, I've talked about lighting before, but there's basically going to be 3 areas in here. We have sky, all right, and then this is supposed to represent the surface, of course. So I have that separated just by extending this into this. See, this area is going to be kind of light like that, but what you do is you just divide it up with a little bit of darkness like that. So it's going dark, light, and this will be darker right here. I just need to fill it in probably with colored pencils to get right up in that edge. Light, so dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. Okay, like I said, I mean, if you do this whole area out here where it's like light and light down here, that's fine too. But it's, if you have like these larger areas like that, I always find it's better to kind of, for me, to bisect them or trisect them. So you just can't keep dividing them up with this little bit of a tone like that coming in from the outside edges like that. And like even down here on this rock right here, See, I have it darker right here. I'm going to leave this, maybe I took it too dark right here, but I'm going to make this area darker down here so that the top of this rock is a little bit lighter. So it's going from dark, light, dark, lighter, and dark like that. So you just kind of just keep dividing all that up and you'll come up with a really good lighting scenario. Hello, Michelle, how are you? Holiday, hello in Wyoming. Whenever I think about Wyoming, I always think, you know, when I made it up there to teach classes, although it was my last stop from, I think I started in Denver, and then I think I went to Fort Collins on that one. And that had to be the one. It couldn't have been the trip that I went to Colorado Springs on. That would have been too long of a trip. But I should have checked out some other areas of Wyoming while I was there. But I think it was my last, I don't know, my last stop. And I had already taught it, been teaching probably for about 4 or 5 days. Starting in the Denver area at 1 or 2 stores. Fort Collins. What was the name of those stores that I taught at? It wasn't Uptown Stamps, I don't think. It was some store that had like a, you know, like a small kind of chain of stores. I think they had like 3 or something like that. I think the one I taught at was in a mall. In Fort Collins. All right. Deep lilac here. And see what we're doing is as we add on additional tone, we're kind of bringing this area a little bit closer to that one. Because I usually have this my waters or whatever, kind of reflecting somewhat the colors of the sky. You don't always have to do that. Sometimes you can kind of mix and match, you know, to create greater separation. You can go with, you know, blue waters up top and whatever, sunset tones, you know, in the sky. Or blue waters below, I should say, and, you know, sunset tones in the sky. Okay, here, I'm forgetting to do something. And that's this mountain right here. So let's bring in some tones around this mountain as well. Underwater water whales. That's cool. What color scheme are you doing, Candy? Shimmer mists for background. Oh, that sounds interesting. We look forward to seeing it. Shimmer mists. That even sounds cool. Okay. Here's my, I don't know, whatever, mountain peaks treatment here. Usually there's kind of lighting coming from above, and we'll still have a little bit of that. But this lighting is largely kind of lower corners, so you can see where I'm kind of adding in the tone on the right side of the various peaks right here. Now I want this to show up my tree line right here. So what I did before I stamped out this tall peak right here, you can see how it's blacker up here and grayer down below. Is because I wiped off this ink, a lot of the ink off the bottom of the stamp, so when I stamped it out, it goes from dark to light. If this was all really dark in here, it would work, but you wouldn't be able to see the tree line as easily as you can now, because again, this is like a, I don't know, like a 20% gray or something like that, as opposed to whatever that is, like a 95% gray. It's black, but I don't know, anytime I put up a true black next to something, it's like, oh, that doesn't look as dark anymore. So anyways, you can see this right here as I tone this in on the right side. And I treat these different peaks a little bit differently. See this peak, if you kind of tone it in right here, this one lower portion stands out a little bit more, but it's still kind of right side shaded right here. So see, I'm just kind of adding in more ink right there, and it just gets darker, and it looks like you get that whatever left side illumination. Okay, let's do that with these rocks down here as well. Okay, so I'll be careful, you know, because I'm using this wide apple. You can kind of squeeze it off like that too and make it more narrow. Okay, oh, by the way, so I lost my train of thought. So this is lighter down here. So I don't want to make this all too dark right here, because again, if I make this really super dark right in here, then I won't be able to see this row of trees as easy. So I might kind of make it a little bit darker here, and then as I move down here, it just becomes a little bit lighter right there. So there's all those little micro tweaks, you know, that you can do. In creating your lighting, and that's all for the purpose of kind of saving yourself some time later, because if you do get really dark down here, you can always take and put some white pigment ink right back there and lighten it up too. But if I don't make it, like, you know, so dark to begin with, then that's one less thing that I have to do at a latter stage. So it's not, there's no, usually there's not too many points of kind of no return with this type of layering here. Putting a little bit of a shading, like on the this side of the pod here, and that kind of anchors them down into the water a little bit more. Gives them a little bit more visual weight. See that right there? Just leaving a little bit of that illumination right back there. It really reinforces this idea of kind of your lighting direction. So it's coloring, but it's about not coloring completely. Selective shading. I'm trying to think of when that would have been. It was probably, gosh, it might be like 24 years probably since I was did that trip to that last trip to college. It was when I stopped traveling so much. Nah, it might have been around, might have been 2004 maybe. 2003. I think my very last trip to that Colorado, I went into, I did start taking a little bit of time in between some classes when I would travel around. So I went to like Estes Park and Rocky Mountain National Park. But that Wyoming, I failed in checking out more of the state. I would have had to do it quick, but you know, just really fast. I don't know, whatever. A jaunt into some Wyoming nature. It's the same thing with like Idaho. I didn't check that, you know, I didn't go around there either. One time I was out there. I would do that on workshop trips. I wouldn't do that on like convention trips. All right. We're going back to the sweet plum. We're getting there. You can see by that really definitive line right in there. We'll try to either integrate that into the coloring scenario or try to get rid of it. We'll try to get rid of it first, then we'll and if it's too apparent, then I'll make it look a little bit more purposeful. You can't cover that up with like a branch or something like that. If it gets, then it's raised, like I said. Or I guess you could. I guess you can fill it in with a black pen or something like that, you know, where it wouldn't stamp out right there. Okay, here's the part right here. I'm not dark enough down here where I'm going to have those rays, those light beams coming in here. If you just joined in, what we're going to do here is we're going to try to create this kind of scenario of these beams up here in the sky, but we'll also have them kind of in this underwater portion right down in this area, kind of emanating from this area right here down into this area to further kind of distinguish surface from whatever, subsurface, underwater, above and below water. Okay, let's see here. Did I use this one? I wasn't sure if I used it up here yet. All these different zones. Keep forgetting this portion right up here. You don't have to get everything done, you know, with this inking like this either. We can, you know, hit this with a lot of colored pencils too. But get your bulk of your coloring done with your dye-based inks before you hit it with your colored pencils. Because if you want to go with the color, you know, more of this type of inking on here, shading, and you already have too thick of a coating of colored pencils laid down, you can't really, you know, adding on additional tones over the top of those colored pencils, it's probably not going to adhere to it or apply, transfer onto your paper as much, you know, having that waxy, whatever consistency on the surface. All right. And if you just joined in, this is one of the Deanna Tubb-Sedillo background papers. Those make it really, scenarios really fast fast to accomplish. Okay, I got a stack of pads here. Apparently I don't use my violet one too often right here because it's at the bottom of the stack. That looks about like that, doesn't it? And again, you don't have to use Marvia. That's, you know, those just happen to be the pads that I have the most of. When you're going into a darker tone, stay on the edge, the perimeter, you know, quite a bit longer before you take it in there. It just depends on how wet your pad is and how saturated your surface is already through getting to that darker tone. If it's kind of drier and then you have a really wet, you know, pad in your applicator and you take it on there, it's going to leave a really big distinctive mark. But if it's kind of on the drier side, or if you have a really wet pad and you ink up your paper towel or sponge or whatever you're using, you know, and if it's just too wet, just remove some of that tone. But see, my pad here is fairly dry, so it's like dry brushing this ink on here. This is almost, you know, I can use horrible technique right here and it's not going to kind of create undesirable applications, okay? So it's really safe to do. But like I said, if you're using, you know, a really super juicy pad, maybe the card that you're applying it to is really absorbing and grabbing and transferring that ink over really fast, then just dry it off and use kind of more of a dry brushing application of media. In other words, just apply your, you know, media nice and whatever, controlled and, yeah, controlled. And if you get really familiar with it, you can apply it much faster and get more of a kind of a more gestural type of application. And here's Janie. I was just thinking of Janie. Janie, you know, has a much more gestural type of expressive type of application. It's more like it's almost like some of the media. It's like calligraphy or something like that. All right, here we go. See this kind of the separation between surface and subsurface right here. I have a lot of layered inks like this, so this is almost like, I wish it would get a little bit darker a little bit faster, but that's the trade-off. You know, it's going on really smoothly, and I can really kind of move this darker ink around very carefully like that. See, I'm getting these. I think this is all pastels right here from Deanna on her background paper. This is a printed background paper, by the way. It's not like an original like that. So I'm getting more of that real kind of gestural look right in here. So I'm trying to match it, you know, in terms of like color, but also texturing like that. Holiday, you're in Colorado? I think I went down to Colorado several times. There were so many stamp stores, you know, in the Denver area, but also, you know, spread around. But of course, you know, most of them are going to be in that Denver area. But yeah, those are always, I love those trips. They used to be in the Cherry Creek. Was that the name of that area? Denver. There was this really cool bookstore within the vicinity, at least. You know, it was it the Tattered Cover or something like that? Really cool bookstore, if it's still around. I would go to like if there was really good bookstores in an area of where I was teaching workshops, I would go to that. I would find myself at those stores at night, you know, because when you're done with a class, I don't know, whatever, 6, 7 o'clock or something like that, I'd have some time to kill. All right, adding that down like that. So it's right here, I'm kind of making this area a little bit lighter. It's not really getting lighter, but you make this area down here darker, and this seems lighter by contrast, like that. I think this is where this card is really coming around now. It's like sometimes when you're doing all these layers of tones, you know, it kind of looks a certain way, but then you get to one color. Oftentimes, sometimes it's like black. It's like the last color that you get to, and that kind of really unifies things. Okay, it might be from a textural standpoint or something like that, or just a tone. So when you're doing this type of layering of ink, in terms of dye-based inks, or I guess any kind of media, for me, I guess it's with alcohol inks too. But sometimes it just kind of looks kind of weird until you get to, but just keep developing it, and you'll get to this kind of whatever more kind of a resolved finish. Okay, and you know, for me, sometimes it's one of the last tones that I put down. Okay, so this is moving through. I don't know if that. I guess this doesn't look like a cool scenario right here, but I'm thinking about adding in a little bit of a warmer tone in here. I don't want to add too much of it because I want this white here, because I have that white pigment ink that I'm going to be adding into this in terms of creating those underwater beams. But I think it wouldn't hurt to have a little bit of this warmth in here just to vary the temperature scheme a little bit. If I sound hesitant, it's because I'm, not sure. Oh, Jeannie's yeah, Jeannie said that she's going to be putting in a lot of time in the office. Okay, so if you want to get some warmth in here, you don't have to put it everywhere, Or if you're uncertain about a certain color, too, you can add in some tone just in a certain area. See, like that? I don't know. Can you see that like that? That little warmth like that? Doesn't it kind of just make this area glow a little bit more? Now it's wet now, so it's going to be standing out a little bit more. It's going to absorb into this paper and dry. So if you kind of like what you see in terms of the strength of a certain color, add a little bit more because it's going to fade out. Or you can just see how it goes, and then you can decide to add more later or whatever. But sometimes it's like, oh my God, that was too much. Just let it dry and it'll kind of mellow out a little bit. So I'm just kind of adding that right here. Do you see it right down here? But do you see how it changed the spirit of this a little bit? I don't know if it changed the spirit, but it's a little bit more of a, see that little bit of warmth right there? So that's one of those things you can do. You can just you can tweak temperature ranges a little bit. And because it's kind of a warmer little area in here, it really stands out because it's, there's not a lot of it in any other area. So you can just go like that. And, it can be fairly minimal, but I think that did it right here. So here, not to confuse things like that, but it's kind of more neutral up here. And then you get warm, neutral, warm. Whatever neutral right down here. Okay. So you can play contrasts, and it could be like really subtle contrasts too. So it's not just contrast in terms of lighting, dark light, dark light, dark light in your pieces. All right. Let's see here. Okay, do you see this right here? I used the water pattern small right in here, but I stamped it in tones that were lighter than what these areas on the side turned out to be, okay? So what I can do is I can go in with some darker tones right here. I'm thinking about, I don't know if I can get let me see if I can get some ink applied to this. This pad right here is completely like just, collapsed in terms of its structure, but yeah, I can get a little bit of tone off of it. And what I'm going to do, this dark purple pad is really dry, but that's perfect for my purposes right here. But I can get a little bit of a darker impression in right here. Maybe it's too dry. It's definitely controlled though. I can barely see it. Anyway, see, it's a little bit more. Now it's going to dry and it's going to get a little bit lighter. So I don't know if I'll be able to see it. So let's move all the way to black right here. Oh, whoever dashes, hello to you. Glad you like it. Hello, military mom. Are you using... Yeah, that's a paper towel there, Holiday. It's an ink blending version of your, Bounty or Brawny paper towel. So make sure it says ink blending on there. I'm just joking. Now, that being said, though, because, paper towels have all that, that texturing on them, okay? When you ink up, your towel like that, ink it up, and then you can smash it down a little bit and make it nice and flat so you're not going pattern, 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 okay? All right, here's black. Now I'm kind of using this again, if you didn't see me earlier, I can use it in its entirety, like a piece of lint on here, or paper. So I'm just using this like on an edge, so it's probably like a little small strip like that, so you use it at a bit of an angle when you're stamping it out, okay? So outside to inside. See, it's darker, and then as you go darker to lighter, it's wet to dry. Okay, it might not be 1, 2, 3, but I'm kind of going like this. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or something like that. It just depends on what your pad is, okay? Some people have like really super juicy pads. So if that's the case, you might want to blot it off first and then go on there. Just, so you can have in control. You can see how much ink you're really applying on there. Now that looks a little bit dirty right there, but I'm going to be blending in those tones and textures with some additional black ink right over the top of that. So that being said, let's go to our paper towel. You can see where all those tones were on here. That's a lot of coloring right down there for like a little quarter piece of a paper towel. So I just turned it into like a little finger like that. So it's almost like you're finger painting. It's like the size of my finger like that. Smash it down a little bit so that it's not all kind of rippled and you don't have like an edge, showing in there. You just go like this. Okay, sop up some ink. Blot it down like that. And then you have this nice kind of absorbent surface to apply your ink with. I should wait for that my impressions here to dry a little bit because I'm stamping out those ripples onto a piece of wet paper now, okay? So these are still pretty wet right here. I can heat set it a little bit, but I'm not going to do that. And then I'm just going like this. This is my kind of application, and it's usually going from the outside edge of the page to the inside. That's the way you get that. That way you'll get some nice kind of transitioning applications like that. I don't ink up like this and then go in here first because I'm going to get this kind of fingerprint area. So I'm kind of going like halfway on and halfway off the page, and then I just do that little, that little, I don't know, whatever, flick like this. Or if I'm going for a longer application like that, then I just use less pressure and I kind of go like this, and I can do this. See, this is even like on a piece of like copy paper where it's really absorbent, it's cheap paper, and you can go for a really easy transitioning application of tone. And see, that's what's happening up here with Deanna's background paper. See, here's that type of thing, like right into here, like that, okay? But she's doing it with like pastels. She might be coming out with white and going into the darker area with the pastel like that, but it's that same type of, lighter type of touch. See here, this is even sitting around, but see this like this, you can just go like that. Now you don't want the sopping wet. Unless if you're really familiar with it and you have a lot of control, like a calligrapher would have, then you can do that. I don't. I don't have that type of control here, so I just make it really easy on myself. It almost becomes foolproof because I'm never applying that much ink at any given time. Okay, so anyway, and if I want this to get darker, I don't go for like black in one tap like this. I just go like for, I don't know, whatever. It's like 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, percent gray. So I achieve those darker tones with repetition like that. Okay, so getting these rocks right here. So like that, see, I'm just putting a lot of taps in here and it's not like super black. You can see what, black right next to that. And see after, I don't know, whatever, 30 taps or something like that, it's, it's about a 70% gray or something like that. All right. Black is on there. It's a little bit harsh. Let me go back to the sweet plum, okay? And I'm adding this in here. Some of the black is on here, so it's like a combination of that sweet plum and black, like that. So I just kind of keep tweaking things. One of the things about these paper towels, I started using these paper towels. My favorite applicator was the color box or the Clear Snap color box stylus tools, and I use those on, I don't know, hundreds of videos until Clear Snap closed. But I really liked using these paper towels for the fact that everyone has them. So, whether you're in whatever, the US or Canada or Australia or even whatever, South Africa, and you're a rubber stamper, you can get a hold of, a really effective applicator. Kitchen sponges work great too. All right. So anyways, so we went quite a bit darker here, but I want those light beams to show up down here. So you make this area a little bit stronger, knowing that you're going to be coming in here with some additional, lighting. Oh, yeah. I won't be lulling Jeannie to sleep. Yeah, if anyone starts falling asleep, just turn off the volume. One of the greatest compliments I've had to the video channel was someone that had a bit of insomnia. I don't know if it was at times or all the time. She just puts on one of my videos, and that just puts her to sleep easier. She didn't have to take anything, maybe as much or ever. I forget what she said, but yeah, it can be more effective than like a sleeping pill. I said, hey, if that's the case, that's I'm glad. Okay, colored pencils right here. It looks like there's more vibrant pinks up here than I have down here. Maybe I've covered it up too much, but I'm gonna come back into this with some of these colored pencils, and we'll add some layering down here. See, like that? I can get a little bit of a stronger pink like that, and that's kind of matching some of the intensity. from up above, like that. You can come in too. You don't have to be, it doesn't have to be like this pink. I'm not going to put this pink over and it's going to become lighter in here. It's just going to become kind of deeper and richer. Like this. So see this right here, this is all kind of the same value around here. But let's do this. Let's vary it though. I don't want to come in around here and do it everywhere. Or you could, but if you want a little bit of variation, so you can come in here like this. Here, I'll put this in this one side like this. Now again, I don't want this like a harsh thing like that. But as I kind of come in here like this, see that area becomes a little bit deeper and richer, and that kind of contrasts against this area that's kind of less intense, I guess. Let's add a little bit right in here. But see, maybe I'll put it kind of in this area, but not out to the edge. You could come out to the edge too if you want, but I usually test something out. Kind of see if I like it, but see how that kind of woke that area up quite a bit in terms of I don't know, color intensity. This area up here is definitely really anemic. It's good in terms of kind of lighting, but not in terms of richness, okay? So let's just do this right here. So again, we're kind of bringing in some of that intensity. And hue, I guess, down here, hue being that pinkish tone. Let's kind of make this area a little bit more kind of intense, vibrant, right in here, like that. Okay, I don't mind that white line in there too much. I'll integrate it a little bit more. Okay, let's come in here onto some of these rocks here too. See these rocks right here, I'm going to try to leave some of the tops of them light like that because it looks like the light is kind of illuminating them a little bit. So, but I can bring this into the base of some of these just to make it a little bit more interesting. Now this is where I might kind of go overboard, just having everything, you know, too much of the same too. Because in making some areas a little bit different, if I do it everywhere, then I'm back to the, you know, situation where everything looks the same again. Okay. And not that that really matters, you know. I mean, it'll look fine, but it's those little tweaks again. And it always happens. I always go like a little bit overboard in a lot of areas. But then in my final touches with the white pigment ink and acrylic paint pens, that always kind of, you know, resolves areas that I've kind of overdone a little bit. Or a lot. Darker violet. I really like the look of the vibrancy of glossy cardstock, but I do like using colored pencils a lot these days, so a lot of times I do go with the semi-gloss cardstock. People do love the look of glossy cardstock, though, because it looks like a printed postcard. I just did that for so many years that I didn't really practice with colored pencils too much. So and this might have been, I don't know, even more effective and with a glossy down here. I don't know. It wouldn't match the sky as much because that's more of a matte, and that this becomes, you know, kind of a closer look. But I don't know, maybe like having this glossy down here would kind of separate sky from surface a little bit more. I don't know if that would look better or you know, just different or worse, I have no idea. All right, here's a black colored pencil. Does anyone use different types of colored pencils? Or has anyone here tried different brands of colored pencils? I think I've asked this before. I was just kind of wondering what people's experience with different brands is. Mostly in terms of the softness of them. The softer they are, the more that you can, the more kind of range of surfaces you can use them with, because they'll apply, they'll transfer onto those kind of smoother surfaces. The softer the pencil is. All right, see that little warmth right in there? Doesn't that helps a little bit? All right, and I think this little area right here is a little bit light. Let's tone that in a little bit. Maybe the entire right side of this mountain right here. All right. How about shadows, maybe? Really light ones. I'm just doing like a 5% gray right down in here. Okay. All right. I might want to, I want a little bit more black here on the corners here, I think. I wonder if this will apply up here on this pre-printed paper of Deanna's. I think it will. Should. It's just like matte cardstock. Okay, there we go. So there's like 4 corners like that. It kind of contains everything a little bit more like that. It's just like a, I don't know, whatever, a 5%, 10%, slightly darker tip like that. It just kind of frames things off a little bit. I used to call it kind of tipping the edges like that. And it doesn't have to be, in this case, like completely black. But sometimes when you match your corners like that, now if there's a sun or something like that, or the light source is right there, then you're not going to make it really dark. But if they're just kind of like darker regions like that, if you just go a little bit darker with the color of your darkest objects, which is usually black, even if you put like, you know, like a little bit of a gray tone in there, and, you know, kind of, you know, transition it. Don't just have like this huge dark area right there, and the rest is like, you know, it's like dark and then just light, you know, like that. That helps kind of more it contains the composition more. So up here, Deanna had that darkest tone like that. But now she left it open because, you know, this could be coming from, I could flip that around, that light could have been coming down in here. So she's left it open, you know, to, you know, however way you want to use it, whatever direction that you want to use it. So, but then you can just go in and add that extra tone in there yourself based on kind of the direction or configuration that you've used the background paper in. So, options. With colored pencils, the Prisma Black. The watercolor pencils I have to moisten before I get a good cover. Oh yeah, the watercolor pencils, huh? Yeah, sometimes we've talked about this before, the watercolor pencils, they can be softer too. So you can use them in those water-soluble types of methodology where you apply them or something like that, and you go in and brush and blend some tones around. But you can also use them where, you know, if the watercolor pencils are softer than your colored pencils, you can also use this as like a colored pencil, just in terms of just a straight application of it too. So I have these Derwents right here, and I haven't been using mine in terms of like a watercolor pencil, but I've been using it as a colored pencil, where sometimes my black Prismacolor is really soft too, but sometimes where, you know, my page is really super wet, you know, with inks, or, you know, I've applied a lot of the colored pencil, the Prismacolors down already, you know, where it just doesn't seem like I'm going to get any more of an application with the Prismacolor. I'll switch to the colored, you know, the watercolor pencil, and that seems to apply on top of the just the standard wax style colored pencil. All right, let's see if I can get this done right here. All right, so we have our beams coming up right here. I need to designate an area in here for my light beams to be coming down below the surface right in here. Okay. And I'm going to try to make it graceful. Okay. So there's not like a formal, like a one little sun or moon or in here. It's this whole kind of area in here. And I mean, it looks like it's going down like this. So, I mean, I would have these beams kind of, I guess the light source would be, you know, if you follow these beams down here, all of these, and where they converge would probably, you know, that would be your source of emanation, okay? But I want to have, you know, these beams coming in here too. So I want to have it kind of coming from this area right here. So I'm going to just designate some area within here. I don't want to put a dot down or something like that in the middle of that, you know, just so I know. So I'm just going to designate some area right on this tree, I think. So I'm gonna, there's this little point of this tree right here that comes out right there. That's gonna be my, should I do that one? Yeah, right there. That's gonna be my vanishing point for these underwater beams down here, okay? So you just designate wherever you're going to have it, and then you use that as the vanishing point for these two pieces of paper that you're going to be using to create your underwater beams. Now I need to figure out where these are going to start from. I'm not going to have beams coming right across here and down. I'm going to have it kind of them going up to about right here or so. So here this, in theory, it's kind of illuminating this area right here, and that's where the beams are coming down from, okay? But I think I don't, right here, if it's right here, then this is going to look strange to have these beams like this, okay, right on the water. That doesn't look right. So I need to have them a little bit higher up like this, I think. Okay, so this is you know, we spent all this time with this all this all these shading in here, but this is good. This is like the whatever the point of the scene right here, what I was going to be kind of experimenting with. Having a light source up in the sky, hitting the water's surface, and then the beams are kind of underwater. All right, and I think I should have them a little bit wider, I'm guessing. I don't know. I'm saying wider because I don't want like a really strong light beam source underwater like this, okay? So there's going to be diffusion. I don't know, I'm just talking to myself. I'm figuring it out here. It's in terms of concept here, but the only thing that matters is how something looks, really. It's not, well, you know, how would that really look underwater? Nah, it's like, how is it going to look on your card? Okay. Inking up with white pigment ink here on a 100% cotton ball. All right, and let's see here. One beam is going to look, it always, when you do your first light beam on your card, it always looks kind of strange because it's just this isolated whatever shape on top of things. But when you integrate it with some additional pigment ink, it kind of makes a little bit more sense. So if you're doing this for the first time, just know that. All right, I'm putting a little bit on that orca's back right here. Here's a little tweak that I'm going to do. I'm adding that on there, but on the bottom of the orca, I'm not going to have too much of that light beam. Just, I don't know, just for a little bit of difference. And I'm going to come in here and go across this rock right in here, I think. I'll have some of the beams going like in back of this rock down here, but I'll put this one a little bit over the top of it. And it doesn't have to be exact, like, at all. And I like to vary my beam strength, not only from beam to beam, but within the beam. So you can see where I'm adding that pigment ink down here, and there's a little bit less pigment ink down here. Oops. Too much here. So I'm trying to strengthen it kind of on the top of the beam. So like that, it's kind of going that, and then you can see where I've broken up the beam a little bit, and then up here it's a little bit stronger and weaker at the base of the beam. That's what I learned after I did a few of these types of, you know, not underwater scenarios, but just beams of light coming through. They would typically be the same strength through the entire beam, but then I just started adding less ink. You know, just like when I'm doing shading, you know, you have less in certain areas and, you know, a little bit more ink on certain areas. Well, it's the same thing with lighting. I found that to be a more natural look like that. So your more natural look, it's less work because you're adding less ink. I don't know if it's less work, but you know, there's less of an application. Okay, now see this beam's coming from coming over the top of our whale a little bit. I'll have another one. Maybe this next one will go this way, and I'll have it behind the two whales, okay? And figure out your vanishing point and see how wide this beam is right here. Maybe I'll try to make it a little bit more narrow and varied, and then you can see your whales right there. And now I can't vary this beam right here. It's just too narrow, so I'm not making it like lighter on the top of it. I only have like a, less than a 1/4 inch to, play around with. So, and then we'll just go right down here. I'm getting some on that fin, but I'm not so careful that, the white pigment ink is completely behind that whale. That's, it's being way too fussy. See, this will keep going right here to the rock right here, and I'm adding less right down in here so that it kind of tapers the strength of the beam, the white, over the top. All right, so you see that one? This beam looks a little bit stronger, unless maybe it's just whiter because it's wetter. When this dries, it becomes a little bit more see-through and darker. Let's see. I use Prismacolors and the Faber-Castell and the Aqua Color pencils. I also got a 120 pack of watercolor pencils from Amazon for like 21 bucks. Yeah, see, I like that. That's great there with a 120 pack for 21 bucks. I always recommend that people, especially when they're moving into like a new medium, if they don't have anything, and then, just try them out because there's a lot of colors that probably you're not going to use quite as much as you do with other media. And then if you really like certain colors and it's, you want to get a kind of a more name brand or something like that, or maybe there's a different quality to it, you can just get the individual colors or something. But yeah, that's like, my alcohol pens. They're really cheap, but, if I'm using one color a lot and the multi-pack color, packs that I'm always using up that certain color, then I'll just, I'll pick that one up in a Copic or something like that with a re-inker in there. All right, adding this beam right here. It's a pretty wide one right here. I was debating if I wanted to put this one behind the rock, but I don't think I'd be able to see the beam if I didn't go in front of the rock right here, just because that area in the background is so light. With such a wide beam right here, again, I'm going to try to vary the strength of the beam. I usually make the area on top a little bit lighter and the area below darker. So more white up high and less below. Like that. I don't know, I guess you can see that right in there. All right, so there's 3 beams. They're various sizes, but I don't know, I guess they look kind of the same size. Here, I'll put maybe a narrower one in here, or should I? Let me see. Let's do this. Let's do this one. This one's going over the top of that whale. This one's behind the whales. Let's put this one over the whale a little bit more. So I'll go here, like that. Here, let me put this here just in case. And let's do this. Here too, I put it over that top of that whale right there, but let's make it a little bit lighter right on the top side of the whale. So it's a little bit more varied. It's a little bit stronger up here and darker right down there. So a little bit of tweaks. So when you do stuff like this, you're kind of like weaving the light through there because it's going in front of the whale, then in back of the whale, front of it. So they're kind of going in. That's the same thing you can do with like trees, you know, when you have these crepuscular rays coming through trees. You can kind of weave it through trees. You can have it in front of a tree, back of a tree, in front of a tree. You know, sometimes it's like, even if it doesn't make sense, you know, it's like, well, why isn't it in front of that tree and in back of the tree that's like, you know, farther away from you, you know? I don't know. I know that all the time. It's like, well, yeah, I know it doesn't make sense, but it looks good. Okay, I'm looking at this right now, and this, I like that right there, so let's do this right here. Let's go a little bit more right over the top here. So doing a little bit of a tweak right there. See that? It's a little bit underneath that beam like that. That's a little bit harsh, but again, it's going to dry and look a little bit darker, so yeah. Linda says, you've integrated the two perfectly. Thanks, Linda. We'll try to integrate these even more right now. Okay, so we have our light beams in here, and it's the only pigment ink that I've used in here. So from a textural standpoint, it kind of matches that, kind of, but we'll try to match it even more. Okay, so where I often use white pigment ink, if you've retained some of the white on your objects in here somewhere, or just as long as there's some white somewhere in the scene, this kind of represents kind of like a fog or mist that's reflecting that same tone. So Deanna, on our background paper here, or like on this one right here, she's given us a little of this white right here. So I can have this reflective mist or fog in this scene right here, and it works perfectly with white pigment ink. All right, so I apply this typically where light meets a darker area. Okay, it doesn't have to be like super dark, but it really kind of harmonizes with those areas. So you have this lighting kind of coming around the object a little bit, or a lot if you apply a lot of it. So now you have this image right here that's kind of what's the word? It's integrated, but it's enveloping. I always forget that word when I'm doing these things. But you get this light in the background here, and it's kind of enveloping your objects. And that's what makes your objects seem a little bit more kind of kinesthetic. There's touch, you know, because you have these, it's visual, you know, kind of kinesthetic looks. And that's the thing that I think, I like that touch in there because I think it makes things a little bit more kind of emotional like that. See, like this? So we're bringing in Deanna's background paper with the front of this piece like that. Here's some area of light right in here, and I'm putting that right into this pot of whales. I don't want to make them all fogged out, but I'll bring a little bit of this lighting in front of here like that on some of them. So it's like this fog is like coming through here like that. We can put some up on the mountain. So a little bit of change like that, it makes it kind of creates a little bit of textural contrast. Here's this little area of light that I've retained back here. Now you don't have to plan for that. It's just like, you know, if you've left some areas of light, then you can add this in here, you know, really easily. If if I toned all that in with that pink right in here, I probably wouldn't add that. It would look fine too. See some of these trees back here, it's like a little bit on that one, a little bit of that, and then you can use these two right here that don't have any pigment ink on it. It makes those trees that have a little bit of that pigment ink on it look a little bit farther back in the distance. These areas right in here, I got a little bit harsh with that black coming across in there, so you just you can remedy that by adding a little bit of light back in there like that. Too much. You can just wipe it off like that. Spread it around a little bit. Let's do this right up here. Let's really change that side of that tree, or alter it a little bit. We'll put it in some soft light like that to really capture some of that lighting. It's soft, but it's really dramatic lighting, on Deanna's background paper right there. All right, I want to create a little bit more of that softness right in here. If I got a little bit or a lot, really too harsh with my water texture stamp in here, let's say, oh my God, I stamped it like really black right here and it looks way too harsh. You can come in there with some additional tones right in back there, but you can come over the top of it with white pigment ink too. The white pigment ink, it can make, like really graceful applications of color and ink look even better, but it can make like really awkward applications look decent. And I can't tell you how many times that happens with me. People don't think that with me, but I always tell them I go like way overboard a lot of times, just because I know I can go back in and add like different texturing right over the top of it with this, and it just it solves all my problems. Stamping problems. All right, so that is that. I think we'll let that dry and set up a little bit and see how it looks. And then let's go in with some additional highlighting. This is kind of the color scheme up here, so acrylic paint pens like this. Yeah, they're all from China, Tracy. I bet you even the name brands. I don't know, are some of the name brands made somewhere else? I was wondering if like Prismacolors were made in China now. So speaking of colored pencils, I completely forgot about this, but I think there's like Prismacolor pencils on like Temu, I think, or just the name brands. What's that other brand of kind of more expensive colored pencils? Is it Winsor Newton, maybe? One of the big art things, but their colored pencils can be really expensive. But then you can see some packs of them, those same sets, seemingly, are being sold on places like Temu or something like that. And they were like vastly cheaper. But I guess they're like counterfeit versions. So just watch out for that, you know. If know what you might get if you try those. Okay, see this right here, this edge right in here? This is what I was talking about with that little edge right in here where this piece of paper is meeting this one. I have that line in there. Okay, I'm going to eradicate some of that line a little bit more. I need to sharpen my pencil, though, to get right in that crack right there, but I'll use a couple different colors. These are too stubby right now, and I can't get in that little area right in there. But these are the colors out of this color scheme right here, you know, for the most part. And you can add in your highlights, and I think that'll look, in theory, you know, pretty decent on that surface. I think it looks pretty decent right now. I don't think I need to go in and do too much of this, but if you want kind of a more subtle type of highlighting on darker areas, then you can use a darker highlight within the color scheme like this. So you can just grab your, you know, grab your pens and see what colors are on, you know, within the color scheme. Now this is a dark, you know, like violet, but if you put it into this area, it'll stand out as lighter. So if you want a highlight in there, but you don't want it to stand out like, you know, like a white down on these rocks, then you can go with a darker highlight. So you can just do your various color schemes. So that's what we've done here with these tones in here. I didn't use too much of the blue, but this is the kind of the colors out of Deanna's background up there. So I've applied those down here in dye-based inks. And then we've gone into, I didn't have too many of those tones in the colored pencils, so I've used these two. Maybe in this one right here too. Right down in here. Now we're using that same color scheme with the paint pens. And I'm adding this in some of these areas, or some of the objects. Right down in here, if you have these beams of light coming across here, it would stand to reason that it's probably reflecting off some of those objects within that area or within the beam, like that. So I put it right on the tops of those objects. Or even if it's not on the object, maybe you have some highlights anyway, just to make the object seem a little bit more dimensional. Sometimes I apply too much and it looks like, you know, it's like crawling with, I don't know, light bugs or something. But then I usually just go back in. I can color them if I want to. Or you can put some white pigment ink over them to de-emphasize them. It usually happens when I'm doing just only using the white pen because it stands out so much in contrast. But let me be a little bit more careful here. I'll apply kind of darker highlights on here that are just a little bit lighter than the tone that's underneath it. Let's see. All right, so this is light in the middle, darker on the side like this. So I'm going like this into my darker area. If I go too far in there, it's going to be dark dots in a light area. So I'm kind of adding this just in an area that I think will be a little bit darker than the pen. Okay, and then I'm going this way out from it. I can barely see what I'm doing right here, but I kind of want that because this is kind of giving me a little bit of a like practice as I start doing this. So I just kind of apply a little bit or a lot where I can kind of barely see this, and kind of it gets me in the swing of adding these highlights. See those little highlights in there? It kind of gives that area a little bit more shimmer, but it's kind of subtle, which we didn't used to be able to do because there weren't these paint pen sets with so many different values of each hue. But now you can pick up these, like this is a 42 color set. It wasn't as cheap this time around on Prime days, but I picked this this paint pen set for about $1 a pen several years ago. So it was like $40 for a 42 pen set. And then last year for Prime days, it went down like $15 for 42 pens, colors. But this time around, I think it was like 20 something. So still, you know, a pretty decent price. It was like those watercolor pencils, you know. It was a 120 pack for $21. Isn't that insane? There are a lot of things out there that aren't available anymore, like the color box stylus tools, but in terms of media, like markers and pens and pencils and watercolor pencils, we have some pretty good options, like inexpensive ones too, these days. I think it was the gel pen. Gel pens first, like, were really inexpensive for those gigantic packs. But that whole adult coloring book market, I think, made it possible because that got really popular for a while, unless it still is. So it became popular enough where a lot of media manufacturers started catering a lot of products towards that that market, which makes it cheaper for all of us. I don't know. I think the coloring book market was bigger than, or audience was bigger than, you know, like stamping audience. Okay, here's pink. Let's see here. Shake that up a little bit more. Yeah, the scene came together, huh, Cecile? I wasn't quite sure how those beams were going to integrate, because I usually have them starting from like here, but I wanted it to look like it was coming from underneath the water, like the surface of the water and down. But I thought it integrated decently. I didn't know if it would be look like really awkward. So, pleasantly surprised. So this one right here, I mean, it kind of looks, I never really have a really strong idea of kind of some end result that I'm going after. So I never, you know, have like a really distinct kind of idea of something, unless I've done something really similar before. And, you know, I'm doing it in a different color scheme or something like that. But if I was to say this one kind of in theory, you know, this is what I was kind of hoping for in terms of especially this area down here. Okay, this is pink right in here. Adding this in here too in these different little regions kind of helps with the textural integration of the different zones too. So you have a little bit of pigment ink up here, right across here, down here. It's kind of adding that soft light, so you're integrating these areas a little bit more. This is kind of a sharp application of media. So in here, maybe it represents like lighting on, you know, these ridges or something like that, or if there's a glacier up there or something like that, it's reflective light. It's a reflected light down here, but this one represents more of like a sparkle. Okay, and this is white, so it's really standing out. So I'm not going to add quite as much of this because it really, it stands out a lot in terms of contrast. Kind of hold it out at arm's distance periodically, you know, so you like zoom out, you know, hold it up at arm's distance and take a look, because you want to get a really strong, you know, the gist of what you're adding to your piece, how it's affecting the overall. So I overdo it a lot with this, you know, which isn't entirely a bad thing, because it's fun to add, but sometimes I can lose track of kind of the overall. Like if I put this white down here, it would like really be, you know, kind of a strong in terms of a textural addition. It's getting a little bit crazy up here. It's like crawling with bugs, light bugs or something like that. So, but I like that shimmer right in there. Okay, see that shimmer in there? It's a little bit too much, right? So you just go in and you just kind of diffuse some of that busyness, I guess, right in here. So you create a little bit less contrast between that white dot and the background. You don't have to do it over everything, but like that. So I'm just kind of doing it through here, okay? Like in the lightest of areas, and then you have that. So it's a little bit more distinct, and right in here, it's less kind of crazy dots. Oh, and one of the things that I wanted to do up in this area right in here that I thought would be kind of cool, and it can maybe add a little bit more textural whatever, continuity, harmony with this lower portion, was some of the Dr. Martens right here, or you can just add them in there individually with I added a little bit too much right there now that I look at it. Dr. Martens splatter painting. Let's add a little bit of star effects up top. Just your old toothbrush, just put a little bit of paint right in the tip there, and it's, I don't know, it's not squeegeeing, but squeeze out some of that extra paint. I should probably add some water to this, but let's see if we can add some of this in here. Let me see. I'm going to do it from this angle right here. I'm going to go like this because if I drip, I don't want it to drip onto this. See, if I'm dripping on here, I'm dripping down here. If it's on a piece of like glossy cardstock and I put a big blob of paint down there, I can just wipe it off. But on this matte paper of Deanna's, I'm not sure if it would come. Actually, that looks pretty good. I'm going to add some of that down here in my water as well. There we go. This whole area down here. When you're doing this, you're just kind of releasing a couple bristles, and then you're going back up and doing that. You're not going zip like that, otherwise it's just going out everywhere, okay? So you just kind of keep letting a couple bristles go at a time, okay? Unless you have this like, you know, you're doing an 8.5 by 11 and it's like, you know, and you're in a blizzard or snowstorm or something like that. You know, then spray away. But anyways, yeah, do you see that up there? Isn't that fun? Up there in that sky? But there you have it. This right down here, especially in this water area right in here, That's going to get a little bit more vibrant when I spray this. I'm going to spray it with a Krylon workable fixative. You don't really need to. It's not. This isn't going to come off if I touch it. You know, it's not. Sometimes with this, if I spray it on top of glossy cardstock where there's less kind of absorption of this paint, it'd probably be a good idea to spray it over. But on this semi-gloss cardstock, you know, my white pigment ink and other media are affixed on here pretty good. But I think that if I spray seal this, you'll get a little bit more intensity of the colors. And there might be a little bit more kind of a blending of the media that way too. Oh, one thing I didn't use on here, I totally forgot about it. So you can, you know, before I went in with the white pigment ink over that, you know, we could have went in with some dull applications of, you know, alcohol pens if we wanted to kind of increase the intensity of some of these colors right in here. But I think that's decent enough. Like that. If you come in with the alcohol pens over the top of this, it might stand out a little bit too much. But what I'm getting at here is if you kind of spray seal this whole thing, then all of these different colored pencils, dye-based inks, you know, acrylic paint pens, they all tend to kind of harmonize a little bit more because you're putting this coating over the entire thing. So it kind of it blends them in from a textural standpoint a little bit more. But this one's, I mean, it's pretty, you know, it's pretty well integrated like that. But the alcohol inks do have that shiny look to them. So those ones especially come together a little bit more with some spray sealant like that. So anyway, like I said, I'm going to sharpen my colored pencils and get into these little areas here a little bit more. This little area up here too, there's a lot of open space up there, so you can add like a quote stamp or a word stamp up there. I'm going to mat this off too with, you know, some color or just some white probably around in here. I'll have to see if maybe I have like a pink or something like that. No, I think it would be white to go around, just that one. And then another one. I can't triple mat this, but it would be cool if I can go white, then a little bit of like violet or pink or something like that, and then black on the side. But this is 10 inches long, so I only have a 1/2 inch up top and a 1/2 inch below, you know, on my paper supply. Hello, Linda. Thanks. Glad you like it. Let's see. Pastels best. I found Fort Pencil's B.F. Herm of Austria. Stick pastels. That's interesting. I've never heard of that. B.F. Herm. Oh, create a color. So that's the brand, Michelle, or is that the line? Okay, so stick pastels. I'm not really familiar with stick pastels. I only started looking into the stick pastels when I was playing around with the Schwann Stabilo Carbothello. These are pretty expensive right now. I had like white from my college days. So this probably costs like 20% of what it does now. But these ones are pretty expensive right here when bought in the... I should have looked on Prime Days to see how much those were on Amazon the other day, but yeah. So, okay, create a color... when you say stick pastels, do you mean where the whole thing is the pastel? Not pastel pencils then? Or no, yeah, Fort Pastels, okay. I'll take a look at that. Hello, Zealous Zest. You're finally here. We were waiting for you. Yeah, the toothbrush. Someone was saying, I've been using this toothbrush here for, I don't know, it's probably like 15 years. And someone was saying, hey, where do you get these just plain old style toothbrush? And I was thinking, what? They couldn't find a toothbrush without those kind of rubber gum stimulators on them. And I started looking, I don't know where I went in. I think I went into like a Target or something like that. And it's like, oh my God, I can't find like a single just plain bristle toothbrush anymore. They all had those rubber gum stimulators on them. But I don't know. And then someone was saying, well, maybe you picked that one up from like a dentist or something like that visit, which might be the case, you know, when they just pick up, like the cheapest ones to give out. But yeah, probably the ones without the rubber gum stimulators are the best. Now you also use other types of brushes too, but the toothbrush works pretty good. But like something like this, actually this one's a little bit too soft. It's kind of like you can use like toothbrushes, paint brushes too, if you do get a nice stiff one. The good thing about, okay, so you can use this splatter painting too with like acrylics or something like that, but you really have to wash your whatever splatter, applicator right afterwards. This right here, the Dr. Martens, if you ever get around to that, or, which is a pretty good one because like even the smallest of tiny little micro dot, it's really, really opaque. But this can be completely dry in here, and you just run it under the sink and it'll wash out just instantly. It's a watercolor paint, so it's not like this plasticky, real harsh paint. But, you can use all kinds of things. People used to get this splatter painting too with like a correctional pen. A lot of people don't use correctional pens anymore, but like those correctional pens, they used to take imagine this is like a, whatever, what do you call that? Liquid paper, or something like that, correctional pen. And they used to take that off, and sometimes they would just, go like this, and they would splatter paint their pieces. And it probably has the same kind of chalky opacity as the Dr. Martens like that, because it's meant to block out things. So that worked out pretty good. Anyway, let's see. So thanks to everyone for checking out the scene card. This one would look really good as a horizon card if there was that fold. Every time I think about these cards like this, so this would be the fold right there, and that would be the horizon. But the thing is, not on this one right here, because this is like longer than this. I guess it doesn't have to match, but if this was like this and came out this way, it would look really dimensional. I don't know, maybe that would be kind of weird with these this underwater piece down here, but thanks for watching, yeah. And thanks to Deanna for supplying the background paper. It's not this one, but this is how these background papers look. You can see if she has these. She's thinking about possibly releasing some larger format ones like this. But the ones that she has are from, okay, I keep forgetting the name of that company, but they have them in packs of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, okay, which are great. But if you want to extend these pieces out, like I've done here, you just kind of, like if you wanted to have like more ocean down here or something like that, remember you can always kind of stay within the realms of the dimensions of this, or you can add on, a whole other portion of it just by, gluing this to another piece of cardstock and then utilizing it like that. So that's what we've done right here. So you get the benefit of the background papers that she's done, but you can, if you need be, you can create a larger card integrating that piece in there, which is kind of fun. So it's really fun in the like I said, the horizon cards or the reflection cards, so yeah. But these larger pieces like that are really fun to use as well. All right. Signature Stampscapes. Let's see. Thanks, everyone. Hope you have a great rest of the evening. Thanks again.